Hi everyone. I had a very good introduction last section, and in contrary to e-voting, I'm going to tell you about internet or i-voting in that case. Because when we started this topic, it became very clear that using some specific machines on a polling booth it makes just life more complicated and riskier. And the issue is not the accuracy or speed of counting of votes. People do that in Estonia in 2-3 hours, and people enjoy the show on the television. So it was natural to go for internet voting. So first of all, not all of you might know what the Estonia is all about, but it's a very small country, which makes it very easy to do great things. But the country is also very eager to use the new technology. Everyone has cell phones, everyone owns an internet banking account, and there is a lot of free Wi-Fi usage. But most of all, the significant thing here is that Estonia is one of few countries in Europe or in the world where we can speak of PKI penetration, meaning that people can actually identify themselves in an internet. And percentage-wise, it is the biggest rollout of ID card in Europe, and that's the reason I'm going to talk about a little bit about the card first, because this was actually the very enabler of internet voting in Estonia. So just a few months ago, we actually had the very official voting, and the possibility to cast a vote electronically through the internet was open to everyone. There have been a lot of pilots and stuff on that area in the world, but that was the very first time when about the 80%, almost all, had the possibility actually to choose internet voting instead of traditional way. But of course, only 2% of people use that possibility, which was actually foreseen result. But first of all, I'm a lazy guy. I'm going to show you a video about ID card. I hope we have some audio. Do we? No, we don't have audio. Problems. There might be some. It's all turned off. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm not messing around here. I rather continue with my presentation because I don't know what the problem is here. But okay, nevertheless, with the ID cards project, we started pretty early. In '97, I had a plan that it takes 14 months to issue a first card, but well, actually it took 5 years. So the first cards were issued around 4 years ago. So pretty much everyone would have a card by the end of this next year then. Okay. because of it was the unique chance to replace the current passports. The first passports started to expire in 2002, and when people came in and wanted a new passport, they could have a ID card as well. The ID card is what it is. Well, it's compulsory for residents. Compulsory in a soft sense, meaning that nobody will put you in a jail if you don't have one, but the correct term for that would be it's a primary identification document, primary. So you can travel with it within Europe. It's a primary document when you do things with, I don't know, government, stuff like that. Of course, it has this visual part, but the important here part is that it has an electronic part as well, containing all the information which is printed visually, but also two certificates. And certificate for authentication, it comes actually with the email address for secure email exchange, so you get a lifetime government-issued email address. And also the certificate and key for digital signature. Well, how to use that is, of course, you use it in the shops to prove your identity, for example. But as of now, for example, because of it contains this data electronically, the ID card is used as a transportation ticket. Today it's just transportation, but in the future it might be that it would be a cinema ticket as well. Because of Estonia's this personal identification number, like social security number in other countries, this number is widely used. So if you stick the card in, the system would know your personal identification number and can check their own database for whatever it is, whether you are insured, whether you are entitled to enter a library, or you're entitled to travel with a public transportation, whatever. So this is kind of low-tech part of the usage, but the high-tech or peak-high side of that is that I would say all major websites, internet banks, whoever, which require for authentication, allow this with ID card. Though it's not very much used, because we have very long tradition of internet banking, and everyone has the password cards. And with that, you can enter internet banks and also other services. So it's not killer application. But what it actually has, something new here is that I think Estonia is pretty much the only country when we have some notion of so-called free-flowing digital signatures, meaning that we have been agreeing on a common document format. Everyone accepts that, and the public administration actually has an obligation to accept digitally signed documents. So the people have generated nearly 1 million digitally signed documents, which are equal to handwritten ones. So when it comes to internet voting, it's always thought that it's a mecca of every engineer, and it has so many issues. But from that perspective, the crucial issue with internet voting is the user authentication part. And having that solved, then you can see internet voting as just another ID card application. Well, sounds simple, but of course it isn't simple. This project for me was more like not a technology project at all. The technology part was a simple one. Well, what were crucial, and the token for internet voters is also there. So it's simple. But this was about building a trust. And how you do that is that you make the process as transparent as possible. You involve as much people or specialists as possible. You secure the law part, the politicians part. You define the procedures. You involve observers. You teach them. You involve also heavy kind of accounting mechanisms. Well, from legal part of view, there was a first wave in 2002 when the voting laws were amended, and then just few bullets about internet voting were written in. Basically, what it says that you need the ID card, you need to confirm your choice with digital signature, and it is used, internet voting is used in pre-election days. So from Monday to Wednesday, 3 days, you can also vote electronically. Well, then when the system became more clear, it needed some amendments, further amendments to the law, and of course there are political parties not in favor of internet voting at all. Well, the people whose electorate is kind of old and from country. So, and we had this kind of president as well, old and from country, protecting their interests. So we had the long fight in the summer, this summer, and President rejected the amended law twice, and it went to the National Court, which of course rejected the President. And of course the reason for President was that we had a system with a repeated voting on the internet, so just the last vote will count. The reason is obvious. You can cast the wrong vote occasionally, and you can cast the wrong vote with the influence, under the influence of someone. Your wife or your boss, or I don't know, would stand behind you when you're voting in the internet with a laptop and saying that you shall cast this guy. Okay. So what you do this, and when the influencer goes away, you just make your own choice, and that's it. But it was unconstitutional, of course, because you cannot vote repeatedly in paper, so that was the issue. So the main principles are that, of course, all major principles of voting as such are followed. One, secrecy, one guy, one vote, so on and so on. The specifics here are that the ID card is required and repeated e-voting is allowed. And also the supremacy of paper ballot, actually. If you cast the vote in paper and also in internet, then the paper vote would prevail. Well, again, the reason is obvious, that you cannot remove the vote or cancel the vote when it's put in a box, okay, in ballot box. But you can do that with the internet vote, e-vote. And the fun part here is that if you look at the projects from other countries, then the internet voting requires you to get some credentials first. So you have to go somewhere, prove your identity, and get some credentials to authenticate to the system. Well, it makes no sense, because if I